clip on Twitter, and it's from like a Rangers podcast or something.
Yeah.
And then this guy just gets into this like tirade about how like certain players are lazy, hinting at like black players. And then one of the players he gets on about, he goes into this tirade about being lazy, but then he also hits up with because he's Catholic as well, because the player's called Alfredo Morelos,
Yeah.
and he's black and he plays for Colombia, so
Mhm.
obviously a Catholic country,
Yeah.
and so he comes on, he blesses himself before he comes on the pitch, and
Yeah.
this guy went, he should be doing that in the changing room, and he shouldn't be coming out doing that in front of us, because that's no us, because we're good Protestant men and all this nonsense. And you're like, why don't you just say what you really mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
So,
then and then there was a few others saying that no, there shouldn't be any of these black players playing for Rangers because it should all be good white Protestants like we used to have. And it's just like, what are you talking about?
well, and the toughest thing is people will say things like that every day in mainstream in every day, and you'll be like, that's racist. And the it would be one thing if people said that and you said that's racist, and they went, yeah, you're right, that's racist, I should work on it. But how have the conversations usually gone with you? I won't speak for myself, but when somebody doesn't say a word that they think makes them racist, but they say ridiculously racist things as you're talking about, how's a conversation usually go when you try to talk to them about it?
Usually they start insulting me and calling me like a snowflake, or like saying that like basically I must be um, like homosexual or something like that, because I try and defend people of like any kind of orientation and things like that. So yeah, usually it ends in me being insulted, but I don't mind if I'd rather they insult me than they insult like other people that aren't doing anything wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can
absolutely.
I can take it, so I don't mind. But I
Pootie's in
just
the
find it
house. Pootie, how's it going? Abel Mad Dog Magwitch is here. We're talking about racism. We're talking about a lot of different things. I totally understand what you're saying as far as if they're gonna sit there and they're obviously the guys that are being racist and hateful and bigots. They're essentially bullies anyway. So the second you talk to them, probably no matter what you say, other than if you say the exact same shit as them, they're not gonna really get along with you.
no.
Yeah. That's what I feel about it. Pooty and everybody that's in here, we got Abel Mad Dog Magwitch for a little while because it is 10 p.m. his time. But if you have any questions that you have pertaining to Scotland, pertaining to his perspective, racism in UK, etc., please go ahead and hit exclamation mark join. But in the meantime, we're going to continue on with some questions and some things. We did have a video, and I sent it to Magwitch before this, and it was a middle school teacher in Texas. And I believe we have the ability to play that video, and I think that would save us a lot of time instead of trying to go ahead and explain it to everybody. So if you guys give us a second, we're going to play a video from YouTube that is a teacher in Texas who is using a term that's extremely well, it's made up, as Magwitch said. He's using a term ethnocentric, and it's essentially white people's or racist people ways of saying that they only care about their own race. It's basically called racism. But give us 1 second, we'll get it up here for you, because we always, as Magwitch would say, get it up for you. He didn't even smirk at that. He was like, I guess it was fucking must be 10 o'clock at night for him. All right, so we're gonna go. Not against it, just trying to stay away from all this. Good stream, but I don't like to talk about this stuff. No worries. I hope you have a good day. It's stuff we got to talk about. You don't have to, and there's, like I said, I don't hold anything against you. But 1 second, just chatting. So let's take a second, educate ourselves. This is in an actual public school in Texas, where, amongst other things, they're taking history out of the history books, Black history, etc. Martin Luther King Jr. So
deep down in my heart, I'm ethnocentric, which means I think my race is the superior one.
the teacher just said to a group of young brown and black kids, he said that deep down in my heart, I'm ethnocentric, which means I think my race is the superior one.
Oh. This is a middle school teacher in Austin.
And this is Jolly Good Ginger. He does a lot of great conversations. He does a lot of ally work. He has helped out. He speaks out against hate. Former racist, raised by racist, and he gives a lot of great point of views that I haven't disagreed with yet. I grew up in a town I feel like is a lot like his town, so I'll let him speak.
In Texas, telling a classroom of mostly black and brown kids that he believes his race, he's white, is the superior race.
White is better than all.
No, let me finish. Let me finish. I think everybody thinks that, they're just not honest about it.
How long I've been...
So he then says, I think everybody thinks that white's better, they're just not honest about it. And Jolly Good Ginger says, I've been telling
you about the conversations happening behind closed doors in the white community. White people swear I'm just making it up, but he said he thinks everybody's like that. They're just not honest about it. Why you think he thinks that?
I'm not racist, though. I like all types of kinds.
Did I say I don't like people?
People only think
Wait,
that.
so you said you are what? You are racist? Saying you're like, you're
I think
racist?
everybody's a racist at that level.
No, you said you are racist.
I did. Yeah, I'm trying to be honest. No, I'm not saying it again. I've said it enough.
He sees no problem with what he's saying to these children.
I actually respected you for a while, but like,
I'm
now,
phone up.
I don't even got no more respect for you.
Put it up.
Yeah, bro. I don't think I got respect for him no more, bro.
You know, you should have more respect for him.
He then has the capacity to say they should respect him more. They fight to keep CRT out of schools. They ban books because of woke culture. They say white supremacy is a thing of the past. Ask yourself 3 questions. Do you believe this teacher has treated his students equally and equitably? Do you think he's the only teacher with this mindset? And do you think this is the first time that he's said this shit out loud for other people to hear? Nah, his close friends and family have heard this bullshit before. I've been saying it, I'll keep saying it. This is the reality of what's happening behind closed doors in white America.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. So that's the video that I sent to Mad Dog Magwitch. Need something today on a third of badge. She's fighting last night. Yeah, like the show. Just another drop in the racist ocean, unfortunately. Yeah, I understand, Pouty, completely. But with that video that we just saw, that's fucked up, Pouty. People in hockey continue to be outwardly and extremely and disgusting. They're all kinds of racist in hockey, and they're proud of it, every different type of it. But Mad Dog Magwitch, as far as being someone who doesn't live in America, and you guys obviously have your own education system in Scotland, what's your opinion on what you saw?
I mean, I put it this way: if I was a student in this class, or like if I have kids one day and like they have a teacher like that, I'm not going to be happy. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think that's absolute nonsense what he's spouting. And then the fact that he's going, oh, you should respect me more. Like, no, I respect you less. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
It's like,
yeah.
You're supposed to be educating, broadening the minds of the youth, right? So that they can obviously take that knowledge, make informed decisions about things, like learn from the past, and obviously use this knowledge to make a better society and things going forward. But it's like here in the UK as well. They only teach history that like the propaganda, there's a spin on it that where the British look good. Do you know what I mean? They don't teach like in British history how they went over to like Ireland or whatever, and basically they were in the wrong. Like the British were in the wrong. They were going over Ireland or like pilgrimaging and like raping and taking everything that they can from like these countries. But no, the British are great. Do you know what I mean? So it's that thing. So I understand that America's going to do the exact same thing, and like any other country, it's like obviously North Korea. They're all going to do the same thing. Like, oh, everyone's against us, and this is the thing. But the thing is, when I was at school, I enjoyed history and things like that, right? But it was only when I left school and I started doing like my own research into things and like listening to other points of view that I realised, yeah, what they were telling me, that's just from one perspective. But when you're a teenager and you're learning, you don't always kind of question these things. So like the white people in that class, they might like side with that teacher because, oh well, he's the teacher, he's telling us what to think. But what he's doing is he's purposely alienating like members of that classroom from probably the majority. So it's like a minority that he's alienating. And these are the things that we should be trying to avoid in 2022. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like the world's just going backwards, and it's like people are using this thing where it's like, well, it's immigrants' fault, it's this, that, and that. And it's like, it's not. The problem is politicians, and then that stems down from them because they're the ones that are enabling all this stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also agree with people that are even stronger than politicians in some positions of power, having such a normalcy and an indoctrination of white essentially being correct before, and thinking that can supersede being a racist thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that are like, no, this is just the good old days, or this is just how I prefer it to be. And a lot of these things, like I'm learning, a microaggression is basically when people say that, and it's like, they're like, oh, like you associate with black people, or you associate with this person, or oh, I didn't know your hair looks like that. They're these really, really weird things, and I'll be honest. You could say it's just racist and bigots, but I think it's almost becoming a white thing all over the world, where it's like, you shouldn't say something, like that it's ignorant, and there's almost this white privilege to be like, why can't I ask somebody about like why their hair looks like that? It was like, because it's a microaggression. It's a weird fucking way for you to say that you're like uncomfortable with them for how they look. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and then I think the reason it creeps into sport and stuff so much is because of that thing we've talked about before. It's like the herd mentality, and like it's tribalism. Like a lot of sport is tribalism. Like especially like football over here. It's your tribe against the other tribe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's as basic as it is. Like you want to be victorious over the other. So this tribalism, and then people mistake that for, well, everybody that supports this team must have the exact same thoughts as I do.
Yeah.
And the same beliefs. When it's not, right? But people think that, and then I think they get braver because they think all these other people around them think the same, and then they kind of can say, well, it's just sport. It's just, I'm just saying this towards like against the opposition.
For a fun time kind of thing.
Aye, it's not real. Do you know what I mean? It's like that thing, and it's that, and it's just like, yeah.
Well, it's important that you say that, because talking about like feeling tough or feeling a sense of enablement or almost an encouragement to like go along with whatever the herd mindset is really scary. And I kind of go back to that video where we saw the teacher in a room full of mostly white kids. Obviously what he's doing is racist and disrespectful to the children of color. But imagine being a 12-year-old kid that's a white kid in that class as well, that doesn't have any problem, like that isn't racist at all. And your teacher is sitting there, and you're almost like, well, I know that my mom and dad and the church kind of say, I respect your elders, teacher's my elder, respect, your father and mother. It's really, really unfair to white kids as well in that class to be misled by an older white man that basically is the authority figure in that classroom. Because not only is it gonna be tougher for them to be like, hey, what you're saying is wrong, but there might be some that are inclined to take other emotional things that they've had at that young age and be like, well, hey, fuck yeah, teacher says like that's okay to be as well. You know what I mean? And that shit goes out to the playground. That shit goes to the grocery store now. And you just literally made that kid ignorant as you want to be,
The thing is, you could also have kids in that class that maybe their parents aren't that involved. Like, you do get like kids that grow up and their parents are kind of distant from them. They don't really get a lot of kind of interaction with them. They don't get like taught like what's right and wrong in that sense. So, I mean, their whole view could just be like, well, as a teacher, they know what they're talking about. Do you know what I mean? So they just follow that blindly because it's not even a subject they can really approach at home because maybe their parents are too busy, or they're just not, like I said, they don't have that connection. So yeah, there's a danger in that as well.
And the thing about it is Mrs. Teal says it's a recruitment in ways, and smiles. How you doing, buddy? I agree. That's a really interesting aspect, because part of the reason why gangs happen a lot of times are because people don't have a home life, no matter what kind of gang we're talking about. And it's if you don't believe that white supremacy is as predominant in America as it is, there's a lot of kids that are like 15 year old kids that stand around in groups of 20 that are just white kids, as people would say, and they're all hanging out at the same area, getting in fights, doing shit, and they're still not called a gang. You get what I mean? And like, so there's all this shit everywhere, and what it is the white supremacy side of that is when you're at school and you're like, when they get out of school and it's in my town, I'll just speak from my experience, and you're like a 19-year-old to 20-year-old white kid, and you're still living at your parents, or you're getting a bunch of money, or you're getting, your parents paying for your alcohol, they're like, that kid's finding his way. In the same town, if you're Eastern Asian, if you're Filipino, if you're black, if you're Mexican, and you graduate high school and you don't immediately fucking like have a career, a job or something, you're seen as just a fucking shitbag, waste of shit. And it's so weird because it's that same thing that we're talking about in sports, where they're like, hey, I got a lot of leeway for a white athlete that looks like me that I'm trying to hope for, and racist are like, I'm giving every single like layer and hurdle that I can to any other athlete on the team. Yeah. So
absolutely.
It's like I said, it's marginalization. It's even in, like we talked about with Akeem Alou and whatnot, and the players that you're talking about that are on Celtic or Ranger, and they're basically, when we talked about this and the crowd is saying, hey, he's underperforming, he's not doing good, and it's screwing over the whole team. Well, we were talking about this. The numbers game says that if you have any two guys on your team, no matter what their background is, if you're an 11-man team and there's 11 dudes on the pitch, two guys should never be able to win completely or lose completely fucking any game for you, right?
Oh, it's a team game. Unless like it's like 0-0 going into like the last minute, and then your goalkeeper has an absolute howler where he spills the ball into the back of the net. That's an individual error. But
Totally.
at the end of the day, the rest of the team failed because they didn't score the goals at the opposite end to win the match, to put them in the winning position. So it's a team sport. But the thing was, there was a big thing over here as well when so obviously the Euro, obviously the World Cup's coming up this month. But with the Euro Championships, they got played last year because they got postponed because of COVID. England lost in the final against Italy, and they lost on penalties. And I think it was two young black players missed the penalties.
Yeah.
And I think they were like, one was Saka, and I think I can't remember who else, because I wasn't really paying attention being Scottish. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't that bothered in the final. But basically, I think it was like two young black players. I think they were like 19 and 20, missed penalties in a final. So England didn't win it. The backlash from all the racists, like just going towards them, and some of the media kind of enabled this, and it was appalling. It was abhorrent, right? But the thing was, instead of like going, well, it's a 19-year-old in a final, high-pressure final, stepping up to take a penalty, which is a 50-50 chance of you scoring it.
Yeah. Oh shit. Hold on, 1 second. We're losing you. We're getting him back.
Go back.
I can hear you. In 1 second. I gotta close this out then. Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
No, I was just saying like, then that narrative came that it was because of the black players in the team that England lost that. And it was just this narrative, but rather than just saying, well, they made it to a final, they weren't good enough on the day to win it.
Yeah, as a team. Yeah, and 19 years old, if you know anything, if you give a shit about intersectionality, which we all should, instead of looking at somebody and being like picking what stereotype most fits your comfortable level, like you said, it's a 19-year-old soccer player. Like, no matter what culture or what skin color they have, that's a shit ton of pressure, and completely disregarding age and everything like that, and being so extremely harsh, and especially you see like with the teacher in middle school, and you see, like you said, the mainstream media doing it. It's a really, really gross pattern that's starting to happen, where it feels like a lot of backyard racism, I guess, if you will, or backroom racism that was never okay anyway. It feels like not only has it come out to the front, but it's almost like it's wagging something and flicking people in the nose until they tell you that you're fucking racist, and then them almost backlashing to you. It's really it's a weird societal phenomenon that's kind of going on with it.
I don't know if I'm right about this, but I feel like in the last 10 years it's went the opposite way, where I felt like 10 years ago a lot of this stuff wouldn't be kind of tolerated as much in like some aspects, but now it's like it's okay to do it. It's like we've went from one thing, and I don't know if it's because there's been like a shift in political beliefs, and obviously Trump being in power has not helped.
Trump kicked the doors wide open on white supremacy. I mean, when you have dudes marching down the street with torches saying Jews will not replace us, and they ask him the next day, they're like, hey man, is that racist? And he goes, well, there's good people on both sides. That's been a dog whistle that white supremacy and white people in America use a lot. Like, hey, I'm either staying out of this one when I know the obvious answer is that this was fucking racist, or I want everybody to get along. And those things are really disgusting, and they happen in microcosms, like at our dinner tables, you know what I mean, where they're like, hey, I just want everyone to get along. It's like, okay, but until we have a fair seat for everyone at the table, it's really unfair to just say that over the problems,
Yeah, and we had the whole thing in the UK where it was like they wanted Brexit. It was they wanted them free from Europe, out of the European Union, but they used it as a tool to play into like the racist and kind of bigoted aspect. And it was like, well, if we don't have all these foreigners coming into the country, there'll be more money for all you guys. And it was all bullshit. Like they lied.
That's the microaggression shit. Yeah.
They lied that they were going to put like hundreds and hundreds of millions into the National Health Service over here, and they put it on they put the advert on the side of like double-decker buses in London and stuff, saying we will reinvest this money into. And then they backtracked on it the next day as soon as they got Brexit. They went, no, we were just saying we could do that with the money. That's just one of the options. But they advertised it as if, right, if you vote to come out of the European Union, the money that we'll save from that, we'll put it into the NHS to help you. And it's like this. It's like politicians are, I don't know, it's like the last kind of 5-6 years especially, it's feel like they just go, well, if we can get all these racists and all these bigots to vote what we want them to do, then we're going to have a bigger majority than like than just the normal people that turn out to vote. And it's
and they don't take responsibility for the stoking of hatred. I mean, January 6th, they basically, whether Trump believes all the racist shit he says or not is not important. The fact is that he said it, that he let other people feel that way, that he got people riled up by feeling a certain way. Smiles has a good question. I'll ask it. I'll answer it real quick, shortly, and then I'll have you give your answer to it. First of all, Mrs. Teal says, Trump gave racism a platform that allowed people to be loud and proud of their racism. That is correct. But Smiles says, do we feel race culture is different in each sport? I will say that, in my opinion, as an American, I think that when you're talking about the pro level, yes, there's more bigots in hockey probably than any. But at the end of the day, all sports in America, and hockey's a Canadian sport first, but all sports in America and racism are really closely tied with alcoholism and kind of tribalism amongst like men. For me, it doesn't really matter in America. There could be a local like nobody likes. I'm not saying like I don't, but a lot of like soccer MLS doesn't do well in America. But if you put it next to like a tavern and there's a big bar and like a town like area to go drink before the game and after the game, you will get plenty of people that show up just to fucking get hammered and eat and drink. That's like Americana. So I feel like, yes, there's ebbs and flows. Some are more or less racist, but that's a really sad thing because they should be zero tolerance on all racism. Magwitch?
Obviously, as an outsider, because in the UK, like really, football's like the main sport. We've got smaller sports, but they don't have the same following, the same kind of thing. I mean, you've got rugby, England's got like cricket and there's obviously like tennis and things over here, but they're not the same as football, right? Football's like a massive thing. It's a religion to many people,
Yeah.
and I include myself in that. Like my football team's my religion. Like
Yeah.
I love them, right? But as an outside looking at American sport, the thing that kind of gets me is obviously I feel like NHL and NFL, they're the ones that've got the most problem. Like I don't know, like does basketball have a huge problem with racism? Because obviously when you look at the majority of the athletes that are playing basketball, like
Yes,
obviously a lot,
it's much more multicultural in basketball. Yes.
and with baseball, like there's obviously the stereotype that it's mainly like kind of white people and then like Hispanics playing it. Like that's the kind of the stereotype that comes across over here.
Yeah.
So obviously,
And I'm not agreeing with those viewpoints. I'm saying I totally understand, and that's kind of like a lot of the same dudes that live around here. It's the same thing. They think that way. But what I would say is to answer your question, as far as NBA, as far as basketball tries very hard, I think, and they get involved in a lot of things. Black Lives Matter, and they do a lot more work than probably any of the pro sports teams. But basketball is also the same sport that like probably I want to say almost 15 years ago decided that all their athletes like had to like dress in suits and ties and everything like that, which could be like a professionalism thing. But when they noted like that it was because Allen Iverson basically dressed like a rapper or whatever the fuck they said, and basketball's also where Donald Sterling was owning a professional team and was clearly like almost bragging about his racism. So the truth of the matter is basketball probably leads as far as giving a shit and as far as trying to make change. The problem in America is that LeBron James might be on the court and might be talking about how much change he wants and he might be driving change, but the man who owns that court and that arena and pays those taxes and gets that money is a guy sitting up in the suite that's telling him, that's basically being like, let's let him have one day and then we're going to go back to doing all the racist shit that we do anyway. So that's systemic racism. Is baseball is owned by a bunch of white owners. A lot of college football and college organizations are owned by generationally white wealthy people that essentially owned slaves before. It's a really, really big mind fuck when you go through the South, and it's one of the like all the great football teams that we have in college now. But it's also the same place that they're giving like wedding tours on old plantations and shit. So it's like the money literally came from, and the generational wealth came off the blood and the backs of slaves. And it's so all sports in America, because of how much they're looked at, it's like royalty. They're like almost bigger than celebrities. All of them have pull in racism or in any societal thing. So, but the NBA, I think they try really hard, but that's the weird thing is the systemic racism is, like I said, if LeBron James decides he's gonna have a sit out or they're gonna stop playing, at some point he's gonna be treated and talked about the same way that Colin Kaepernick was. It probably won't be as quick due to the fear of people not jumping on that, but as easily. But yeah, so to answer the question, that's in America. Do you feel that rugby or soccer or any of the sports that go on where you're at, do you feel like one is actually evolving quicker than any of the others? Some are going backwards quicker?
I don't know. The truth is I don't know, because I think there's a lot of sports here like tennis and like rugby are they're kind of seen as like in a political aspect, like Tory sports, like so like you kind of more right wing people that vote for like the Tory political party, they're more into those sports. So there's that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think pretty much most sports are all kind of subject to kind of sports washing and things now as well. So there's a lot of kind of unsavory things in sport right now. I mean, look at the World Cup this year. It's happening in Qatar, and that's just a blood money tournament, and I won't be watching a single moment of it because I've got a lot of beliefs on like what's happening in that country.
Well, human rights is what you believe in. It's fucking ridiculous. I won't be watching the World Cup either. But it's also not lost on me that we're starting to get these situations. You talk about divisiveness in a lot of things. We didn't watch Crown Jewel, and it's like, so if you get to the point where you want to be a human being that gives a fuck, you shouldn't have to choose between like it's gonna get to the point where they're like, hey, you can watch the Super Bowl in America, but you got to watch like this racist commercial and this shit and that shit in the background. Otherwise, don't watch it. And so it's not lost on me that they're basically like, hey, this is everybody's gonna watch the World Cup. And so we're kind of going to put it in a spot that otherwise, if it was a small tournament, like a kind of a nothing tournament, it'd be way easier for people like, fuck that. I'm not going to watch the Qatar tournament.
Yeah.
But they're putting...
I've seen people over here say that they don't agree with like the tournament, but so they're not going to watch it on like the mainstream channels over here. And some are saying I'm just going to watch it through like an illegal stream on my Fire Stick. But then that ethically that doesn't really change much either. Do you know what I mean?
We're trying to be good people, though. I mean, there's layers to the shit. That's
and
so
I've seen
funny.
people, and I've seen people saying that what they'll do is they'll place bets on the World Cup. And then if their bet comes through, they're going to give all that money to like humanitarian like charities and stuff to try and help the people that are being mistreated over in there. But it's one of those things like me as one person taking a stand, not watching it, it's not gonna make a difference, right? It's not gonna make a difference to the overall thing. What's happening over there? FIFA's still going to make loads of money. Like Qatar, they're getting what they want and. There's still going to be like millions and millions of eyes on it, all over the world watching this tournament. So like the select people like myself that are going, nope, this is the one time that I'm not watching it. And don't get me wrong, I mean they've had one happen in like Russia a few years back, and probably I should have boycotted that one as well. But I'm starting to kind of. Yeah, it's like with WWE. I don't watch any of the Saudi Arabia stuff that they do over there. And it's for the same reason.
Yeah, it may be a small thing, or it may feel like it's a small thing, but I also feel like there's a really bad pattern of when a lot of people are speaking up or trying to do quote unquote small things. There's kind of a thing of does it really matter? And I would say. Because I'm in the same boat as you in that, and I feel like we're small pebbles in an ocean at times. But this world and social media and certain things, there's a lot of people that are in that crowd at those Celtic games that don't want people to be yelling shit the same way that you do. And I think that even if we just start and keep talking about things like this and talk about how not only is it not cool, it literally causes pain to people. It causes lack of competition. We can't have the best competition if not everybody gets the same tools. Like that'll never fucking happen. And if you're afraid of that, then you should speak up and we should work on it. But I just think that there's so much bullshit going on in the world that it's refreshing to be able to talk to you in Scotland. And as small as it may seem, there's going to be somebody that hears you. There's going to be somebody that hears this. There's going to be somebody that, talks better to somebody at their house, at their work, at whatever, just because we're trying to make an effort. So don't downplay it because it makes it really easy to kind of stop doing it,
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at though is it's going to I don't know what it's going to take to kind of get these organisations to basically look at how they deal with things better, because obviously FIFA. Yeah, it's not got a great past, and also there's a kind of Netflix documentary as well about the kind of corruption in it and the things that they do. And like I said, there's a lot of sports washing. The English Premier League, a lot of their teams are under that.
Explain sports washing, because I think in general I can guess what you're saying, but for all of us.
Well, the prime example is you've got Newcastle United in England. They were the latest team to be taken over, and they've been taken over by the Saudi Arabia state basically. So they're doing what WWE's doing basically, taking their money to make their products better, to improve their team. But at what cost? They're selling their soul for success basically, and obviously, like even Newcastle, it's like these things. Their away kit mirrors like the Saudi Arabia flag. Like they've got a green and white a green and white kit, but it's the same kind of green and white as the Saudi Arabia flag.
Yeah.
Whereas Newcastle prominently wear like black and white. That's their colours. So like their away kit is like mirroring a Saudi flag, and it's things like that. And obviously the Premier League's like a massive brand, and it's like a thing in itself, and it's almost became separate from the rest of football because the rest of football can't even really compete with the finances that are on thing. You've got teams like PSG in France. They're a bit the same. They're kind of owned by like a state, and their owners did horrible, heinous things to journalists in the past as well. Like actually abused journalists. Like look it up, PSG regime and journalists, and it's like horrific stuff. And so there's all these things, and it's these things, and it's like they're just like selling their soul for success.
Yeah.
And they're basically enabling these people with money and power to basically do a thing.
over.
But and they're using the football team to basically boost their portfolio and basically try and gain like some
friendliness and cozy up to certain things and try to gain business, etc., etc. Yeah, and it's crazy because in America, in Arizona, there's this crazy story. I'll get the details for you, but here at some point when they run out of oil, in Arizona, they've already sold their oil, or it's like an oil pipeline they had, to Saudi Arabia, and then they bought it back from them for a certain amount that they have to pay at another time. So essentially, in about 10 to 15 years, Saudi Arabia is likely to own legally Arizona, the fucking state of Arizona, through an oil transaction. And so when you talk about sports washing, it's not just about ownership. It's about like one of the things that happened is it, like you said, it cozies up this really, really like disgusting regime with they try to normalize it. And you had the Live Golf tournament. I don't know if I told you about this, but Phil Mickelson, he got $100 million to play in New York or New Jersey, and it was like a 3-day Saudi Arabia sponsored Live Golf tournament. So he got $100 million to play 3 days of golf. Tiger Woods, shout out to him, he turned down $300 million. And the actual trophy of the guy who won it, I showed it already on Discord, and you guys can look at. I'll get the source for it and everything. But it literally looked just like one of the Twin Towers when it first fell down. It was like a half burnt down, like nobody makes a crooked half bent trophy, and they made sure to make one that had like almost like the rebar. Like it was disgusting. And you're sitting there like, what does that say to like to the casual kid that's watching sports?
I mean, it's not even that as well. It's like these countries have just got like horrible like way. They not even just like, it's like the men are like they're the privileged ones, but if you're homosexual, if you're a woman, like,
you're an object, or you're
you're an object. I mean, look, there's horrible things about them, like raping women constantly, like they're not allowed, they've not got any rights, and it's like all these things, and it's like, yeah, you're not a good country. It's like basically there's no democracy in these countries either. So it's just basically whoever's in charge there, whatever they say goes, right? And if you disagree against it, you could be murdered, end up in prison for the rest of your life, whatever. Like, you're not allowed freedom of speech or freedom of thought in these countries, and the likes of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, like they can try and pretend that they're being progressive and they're doing all these things, and like with WWE, oh look at this, we've got women on the card. Yeah, but really, I mean,
well, they made them wear coveralls too.
Look what they're making them wear. But the likes of Riddle, he can cut about in his little tight pants and like wear nothing else, and that's fine. But the women, they've got to be covered up from their neck, like down to their feet, basically, and it's
And I want to correct myself. Mrs. Teal is right. It was actually their water, which is super interesting because Saudi Arabia and oil would have been, I mean, that would have been okay. Everybody, that makes enough sense. But Arizona, when America has Flint, they have Mississippi that's running out of actual water. Arizona sold the rights to it's like an aqua thing that they have, a reserve for drinkable water, and they sold it to Saudi Arabia, and in 10 years when they basically run out of water, they're going to still have to buy it back and not have water. If you look at the deal, it's just fucking mind-numbingly stupid, but it's taking the sports washing that you're talking about to just washing, to where it's basically Saudi Arabia buying into Arizona. And I don't know how that could be legal. It shouldn't be, but go ahead.
So basically, when that state runs out of water completely,
They have to buy it back from Saudi Arabia.
yeah, but people start dying because there's like a genuine like drought because there's not enough water to go around. Like, surely that borders on like genocide. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like
No, well, you do know that right now. I'm not saying it bad, but in America, and you know, we're not considered a third world country because, and we're not. I understand. I wouldn't be disrespectful like that. But Flint, Michigan, doesn't have clean drinking water, and it hasn't for years now. And then Mississippi, I believe it's Jackson, Mississippi. They literally just completely, instead of redoing their water system so people could have drinkable water, they gave $4 million to Brett Favre to give a speech that he never gave. They gave another like $5 million to the Mississippi College because his daughter played volleyball there. So in a predominantly black town, Jackson, Mississippi, where the residents are like 80% black, they don't have drinkable water because Brett Favre, a white quarterback, and his white daughter going to Mississippi got paid. But here's the thing is, it was a fund from the actual, like, the city. It was the city government decided that they were going to pay him to come in and give speeches. They funded the daughter's new volleyball court for their college, and now people don't even have drinkable fucking water.
mental, absolutely mental.
It's fucking crazy, right? So I don't know, man. I won't be watching any FIFA. I won't be watching that at all. And like I said, I think we have to keep having these conversations. We have to speak up, even if it just gets people to go and think on their own or think about things that they weren't thinking about. And like Mrs. Teal said, a lot of people didn't know that Qatar is in there, and it's getting more slippery. And I mean that term in the sense that there's a lot of people that be like, oh, this year the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden, like at the last second, the week before, they'll be like, by the way, it's in North Korea, and people are like, well, fuck, I'm not gonna not watch the Super Bowl. And it's like, why the fuck wouldn't you? Like come on, man. So I appreciate your ability to stand up for what you believe in. A lot of people can't even miss a goddamn wrestling match. You know what I mean? Just to stand up for things. So I'm not trying to judge them, but I'm appreciating the kind of man that you are, man. So Mad Dog Magwitch, do you have anything else that you're wanting to talk about? Yeah, that's a good. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mrs. Teal. Go ahead.
It was your second video that you put in, the pledge and the allegiance thing. That made me laugh as well.
Well, and it's funny, but it's not. I think we should show people. Let's show people because it's pretty interesting, right? And it's a shorter one. But Mrs. Teal made a good point. She said they put John Hamm in the fucking FIFA World Cup commercial to try to make it all friendly and everything. You know what I mean? It's like John Hamm, Qatar, FIFA. All right, wholesome. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I don't know. You mean that's not wholesome? Give me 1 second. And I've been saying this about the Pledge of Allegiance for a while, and a lot of people don't know that our actual our national anthem, it has a third verse that they took away after, I don't know what year it was, but the third verse is literally just instructions on how to keep your slaves in line. It's fucking crazy. Give me 1 second. Let me go. Just chatting with you. Boom. All right. This is Jolly Good Ginger.
As a patriot of this country, it makes me proud to know that my child says the Pledge of Allegiance every morning at school. But I thought you were against socialism. Excuse me, this ain't got nothing to do with socialism. I'm talking about pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States. Yes, but the Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist minister named Francis Bellamy. And he originally wrote it so that it could be used by any country, not just the United States. It actually has nothing to do with patriotism to the United States at all. A socialist minister. Yeah, a socialist minister. In fact, the words under God wasn't even originally in it. That wasn't added until 1954 in a response to the communist threat. Ha! See, we had to respond to communism with the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, that's not going to be the best argument for you. You see, originally when reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, it was intended that you would do a military-style salute towards the flag. Then at the end of the pledge, you would extend your hand towards the flag. Does that remind you of anything? Wait, so you're telling me originally the Pledge of Allegiance had a Nazi salute in it? Yes, I'm telling you that the Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist minister and was intended to be used by all countries, not just America, so therefore it has nothing to do with patriotism to the United States of America. Under God was added later, and it originally included a Nazi salute. The sole purpose of the Pledge of Allegiance is indoctrination. So now how proud does it make you to know your child says it every morning at school? Where'd you learn that at? Liberal college?
So, yeah. So, Magwitch, I'll have you answer the last question that Smiles asked, and then I won't keep you on here much longer. I hope you start getting back to 100%. But Mad Dog Magwitch, Smiles wants to know, what change do you want to see in the UK?
I mean, there's a lot of things I want to see change. Like the main thing I want to see is just like I don't like this like racist kind of undertone that's happening in the country again. Ideally, I'd love Scotland to get independence, so that we don't have to have like people in London basically making our decisions for us when basically they're treating us. The thing is, in like the UK, like the Tory government, they're based in London mainly, and anyone kind of north of like Birmingham, really, so like the Midlands way, anywhere north of that, like we're a second-class citizen to them. They don't care what we think. We're nothing. And the other thing is, like Scotland's got like a lot of the oil off the coast, like Aberdeen and things like that. We've got whiskey, we've got like lots of kind of things that come from our country that makes the rest of the UK a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there's this myth that Scotland couldn't survive without like England, but the thing is, a lot of the things that they want, we don't want the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I'd love Scotland to be independent, and I'm family a lot Irish ancestry. I want Ireland to be united. So I want like the British rule to stop being taken over Northern Ireland. I'd love a united Ireland, independent Scotland, and like I said, I just want a lot of the racism to go. I think there's a lot of things that are messed up about the United Kingdom at the moment.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have like the Remembrance Sunday and things like that today. And don't get me wrong, I still respect the silence. I did it on Friday for like, and today the 2-minute silence. The one thing I don't do is I don't wear a poppy, and the reason I don't wear a poppy is because I don't agree with a lot of the things that the British Army have done, like the deployment and like they killed a lot of people in Ireland and that as well. So it's like part of my ancestry's been affected by that.
Yeah, you don't want to wear their logo essentially. Fair enough.
No. So if I was to wear a poppy, I'd wear the white one, which is for all the war dead, because at the end of the day, my view is everyone that's been made to fight in these wars, they're innocent.
Yeah.
It's the people, it's the politicians, it's the royals in these countries that's telling them what to do, making them put their life on the line, and a lot of the time, like I said earlier, history's skewed to each country to be they were against us, but they don't actually tell you the things that your country's done wrong.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like they never tell you well the British were out of line for this, or the US were out of line for this. We were wrong here. They don't do that. They never do that, and they'll never teach that in like schools or anything like that. So Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to see change, but I don't, like I said, I just think the world's getting worse, worse and worse every year now, and I don't know where we start because there's so many things wrong at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think, like I said, having conversations like this, making sure that we continue to talk, speak out against racism, homophobia, just any hatred in general, and also the thing that's important is we're anti-hate, pro-love, but I'm really anti-tribalism. I'm trying as much as I can. I was raised obviously in America. Herd mentality is football teams. You know, it's classroom cliques. It's everything, and it doesn't make you the strongest person you can be mentally. It doesn't give you the freest way of thinking. And I've had to take a long time in my life. And anything we can talk about with people that can maybe spur them at a younger age or in any spot to try to learn from those things and that ignorance that I definitely had and still have in a lot of ways and have to fight against it. That's priceless to me. So, Magwitch, I appreciate you being here very much. We'll have to do this again next Sunday. We'll have it a little more sorted. We'll have some more videos up to watch. But I just want to thank you very much for speaking up and speaking out. So,
Anyways, man. Like I said, some of the stuff I've spoken about today. I'm not an expert, but what I would say is anyone that's kind of wants to know more, do your research, because that's what I always try and do. I try to do like research and things I don't know about, so I can try and make an informed opinion.
Yeah.
And don't just look at it from one side. Look at it from, because the truth isn't going to be just on one side. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, from where like the two sides are coming from. So just try
gain
and
perspective from people.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like I said, history is taught and like facts are taught with an agenda, and that's always going to be the way with like the media and things like that. So yeah.
It happens in America all the time. We tell a lot of stories with half of it and everything else ripped out. But Abel Mad Dog Magwitch, Shays, thank you for being here. Smizzy, thank you for being here. Mrs. Teal, everybody, thank you for being here. We're gonna send it out. We'll come back here probably in about a half hour. We'll play some puck. But Mad Dog will have more interviews on YouTube. If you guys aren't following Mad Dog Magwitch, please make sure you give him a follow. Hey, buddy, I hope you get some good rest. I hope you know that we love you very much. You, Bonnie, Mrs. Magwitch, and you didn't tell me, or at least I didn't see it. What's the cat's name?
Molly, and
Molly?
she is 21 years old.
Oh, and she's pissed that I talk about Bonnie more than her. Then I'm gonna fucking clean it up, bro. I'm in trouble. Molly, Bonnie, and you're in trouble. You gotta send it over to Shays. Yeah, let's send it over to Shays. He's either playing Call of Duty or he's playing some hockey. Mad Dog Magwitch, I'll see you next Sunday. Is it a date? Sounds good.
Should be, man.
All right, love you, buddy. Take care of yourself. You have a great day.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
You too.